Hello and welcome to the Biz Dev Podcast, the podcast about developing your business. And I'm your host today, Gary Voigt. David Baxter's not with us. He's on vacation, but filling his spot. Much better, much brighter, much smarter. Our co-host for the day, Christie Pronto, our marketing director. Say hello, Christie.
Hello, everyone. This is my podcast debut. Greetings.
And joining us today as a guest, please welcome Kadion Preston. Kadion, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me, Gary. And it's great that Christie's first time on the podcast is with me. So let's make it fun.
Be gentle. Be gentle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Straight up professionals here. We're all so experienced. This is going to be just smooth sailing the entire time. I guarantee it. Or at least the editing will make it look like that.
Yeah. I'll do my best.
Now, Kadion, you're the founder and CEO of Caribshopper or Caribshopper?
Yes, sir.
How would you pronounce that?
It's Caribshopper.
Carib.
So
Okay.
Carib for Caribbean.
Yep.
And of course, we all know what shopper means.
It's an e-commerce marketplace for Caribbean-made products. We're going to talk
Yes.
about that in just a minute and get a little bit more into how you started it. But I did want to ask, because when I say we, me and Christie kind of looked through the website, and I recognize some of the products. I'm living in Florida, so we do have a lot of these products in the area. Christie loved the way the site was built. So it made me think immediately if you built this site custom development, or did you use like no-code platforms like Shopify or Webflow, or what's the backbone of this site?
So the backbone of the site is actually a no-code platform called Shopify.
Yeah, it is Shopify. Okay.
It is Shopify. We edited a template to fit our needs. It was after try number 3. So we started with Magento, then we went to Ecommerce, and then we're here now. And it makes sense spending our time on the customer experience rather than building a platform that so many exist.
Yeah, and Shopify is a great tool. We love it. We use
It
it.
is.
We recommend it to our clients all the time. It's way more effective to use a platform that already exists and has a great reputation than to try to create something custom from scratch, especially when it comes to just the transactional, like privacy, security, and pulling in the different kind of payment methods. Yeah, Shopify is great.
And the ecosystem that Shopify has built allows you to spin up and execute a lot of tools, sales tools, marketing tools, whatever you need very quickly, which is a little bit different from the experience I had starting out with other platforms.
Yeah, they're integrating, I think, to name other companies, they're kind of putting in like a MailChimp component as well, if I'm correct, where
Yeah.
you can spin up landing pages and send direct emails out. I think, do they also connect and integrate with other no-code platforms like databases like Airtable and stuff like that? Do you know?
So I'm not sure. I haven't used it for that. We've used Airtable internally for separate reasons, but we haven't thought to connect it with Shopify. How we built our platform, because we're a marketplace, Shopify isn't really built for a marketplace. So the back end, which is one of the most critical components of a back end of a marketplace, we built that internally. So we spent the time on
okay.
building that internally, because that was the missing point. But from a front end standpoint, Shopify is excellent.
This brings up another question I had immediately when I was looking at the site. Are these products being imported and then shipped again? Or are they
Uh,
being shipped from a place in the United States that's already imported them from Jamaica?
so the interesting thing is our mission is authentic Caribbean made goods.
Yeah.
So one of the things for us to have a true impact on that, Gary and Christy, our fulfillment centers are in the Caribbean countries. So today we're in Jamaica and Trinidad. We're building out our centers in Barbados, Guyana, and we're thinking of whether Bahamas or Grenada, but it's all shipping from that country. And so
Okay.
the reason for that
Wow.
is not all products are domiciled here that we carry at. We have close to about 8,000 SKUs on the platform between the two countries. So it's more convenient and also um, better structured us having our fulfillment centers in the islands. And so we ship from there.
Okay.
And it also aids the customers to get the freshest products,
Right.
because a lot of times we don't acquire the products with long shelf life sustainability. We do the short shelf sustainability ones.
Is there a whole rigmarole with customs and shipping food products, or is
Oh
there
my
certain
God.
products you have to shy away from?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, look, there are three major barriers, Gary. The big barrier is understanding cross-border e-commerce from the Caribbean to US and Canadian markets, and we're about to open the UK, and being able to make that cost effective. That's number one. The
Yeah.
second barrier is understanding um, the responsibilities and the departments that you have to get your products ready, whether it be FDA, customs, whether you need licenses to carry certain things. And so we've done a lot of those heavy liftings. And interestingly, in our close to 3 years in operation, I mean, we started in February 2020. Our biggest challenges for cross-border e-commerce came this year when we changed our shipping method because of our growth rate. And we've had to go through some of the toughest times in getting those challenges resolved. And yeah, it's a barrier. And so we're removing that friction for our merchants.
Yep.
Awesome. Now, you said you started in 2020.
February
Is that when you
2020.
came up with the idea, or is that when you put the idea and executed it into a business? Like, how did you come up with the idea to create a marketplace to ship goods from Trinidad, Tobago, Caribbean, Jamaica to the US?
So the idea started, in, I think it was 2015. 2015, my brother and I, we had just we've gotten ready to sell our existing company that we had for over 16 years, and we were like, what's next? And because of our background, our mother was an entrepreneur. She built a children's manufacturing business in Jamaica, and looking at the market and realizing that things are the same since when our mother did her business in 1989.
Mm.
It's still the top 12 to 15% of manufacturers that are able to export their products internationally to their diaspora customer base, or customer base that might have been introduced to these products. Um, and for us living in the States, in different countries, in different cities, sorry, made us realize that there's a big opportunity in solving this problem. And so in 2017, we got the idea to control e-commerce for the Caribbean. So we started building the export of US products into the Caribbean, and with the plan to do the import. And after a year and a half of that side of the business, we said the margins are too tight and we should just focus on what we started to do, which is to build the export model. And we literally wound down that business and spent 2019 working on product market fit study, traveling through the Caribbean, meeting manufacturers directly, seeing the challenges on the compliance side to the US and the Canadian border, because those were our two export markets, and formulating a plan, and then looking for a first team member in December 2019, and officially starting the company in February, right before the pandemic.
Perfect.
Like
Yeah, I would.
2 weeks,
Yeah,
like 2 weeks, like literally two
there's
weeks.
Uh,
recently a lot of the guests that we've had, and we've talked to quite a few. The pandemic seemed to either really help accelerate their digital business or force them to switch from one idea to another that in a lot of cases ended up being a better idea. So I'm curious, in your situation, when you're about to launch and hit go and then the pandemic hits, what are you feeling?
So when we started in February, we were starting to work on building out the infrastructure for the platform. So we weren't going to the public. Our plan wasn't to go to the public until 2021, but
Okay.
spend the time building out the product, the entire categories, getting all of the infrastructure in place. When the pandemic hit, I can't. to be very honest, I was very, very nervous, filled with anxiety because every single plan, every single strategy that we had in place had to change because the islands got extremely strict on
Yeah.
their no touch policy. Like Trinidad was shut down for a year. Like nobody left their homes because that's an oil country. Jamaica had like hard shutdowns, curfews, you name it, and hiring new staff, everybody remote, getting everybody trained, understanding roles, responsibilities, how we're going to work within the week by week challenges and changes. That was a challenge, but the pandemic did aid us in that merchants, as a startup, merchants were excited to onboard with us. They were
Any
shut
way they
down
can get
in
their
their
products in
own,
people's hands. Yeah.
Right.
Now I'm
their
assuming
business was
that
shut.
also, sorry, that probably also
No.
present a lot of challenges, which is shipping as well, because I know
Oh,
shipping
it did.
and
It did. We couldn't touch shipping until we did our first shipment in beta, I think March 2021, and then we started
okay,
smoothing out the process, and then officially we launched September 2021.
okay. So it took a while for that,
It
all the
took a
little
while. It slowed us down,
knots
but it
that have to
made
come in.
adoption. Yeah, it slowed us down, Gary, but it made adoption very quick with merchants because our model is that we work directly with the manufacturers. We don't allow resellers on our platform.
Okay.
I'm just so intrigued by the whole idea. When we interview people frequently, it's always that they whittled the idea down to such a finite point that there is no other place to go but success in that idea. But then, like you're saying, something else extraneous happens like COVID, and it sort of pivots everything in a way that's like sink or swim. We spoke to a woman who has it's like a farm fresh food to table type of delivery system, and they were having issues pre-pandemic, and then during the pandemic, it took a bit, like you had said, to sort of reorganize their thoughts around it. But then pretty much after that, it was just like the need was there. Those relationships that you had with the vendors, they were hungry for that. And so it sort of takes your idea and pivots it and accelerates it, which I just think is really, really interesting and something we've heard as a trend when we talk to business owners that have started right around that COVID time, which is really cool.
Yeah, it seemed like the delivery business or whatever, digital shopping, then things being delivered to you
Yep.
without like a point of contact seemed to really just kind of explode. And if it was done right, uh, that I would say the acceleration in that and then the adaptation, like you were saying, didn't seem to slow down. Seems like the businesses that were doing it right kind of kept their headway. So I was curious to know
Yeah,
from
and
you, Kadion, is business still growing, or did you see like a spike and then a plateau and then
no,
a slow growth, or is it still just shooting?
no, business is still growing for us. Luckily for us, outside of the last 3 months where we had FDA issues, business is still growing for us, and we're
Awesome.
loving the opportunities that presents itself. Just to add to your point, Gary and Christy, I remember talking to one of my mentors, and he told me that go back in history and connect the dots on when Alibaba took off. And interestingly, it was I think it was 2012 when SARS first came out, that the
Oh,
adoption of Alibaba got really impactful because people were shut down from traveling to Asia. So it was a very, very good point. It made me comfortable to pivot and make the decisions that we were making at that time. As hard as it was interesting. Look back
you've
in
seen
history.
it. It has worked before in the past, so as long as you stuck to it.
Yeah,
And for people who don't know, which I don't know, most of our listeners might or might not know, Alibaba is like the Amazon of Asia. So it's their number
yeah.
one digital shopping platform, e-commerce platform, or I guess it would be more of an empire than a platform at this time. So you
That's
mentioned
really
you
funny.
started with your brother. Is he still part of the company today?
So interestingly, no. My brother and I have been partners for close to easily best friends and partners for close to business partners, probably 18 years.
Wow.
In 2022, he's about 3 years older than me. He wanted to do something different with his life, and and I understood where he was coming from, and it was a life-shifting moment for him, and so he sought out to do that, and I'm very happy for him.
So, a business like yours, I'm assuming you said you shifted your company to all remote employees. How many employees do you have at this point? Is it a small company still, like 5 to 10, or is it over 10, 10 to 20?
It's 26 today.
Wow.
It's
26.
26.
Okay, so you have
Yeah,
experienced some growth.
yeah.
And
It is
I'm
26
assuming
today.
people working in multiple countries that you have to manage.
T- 4 countries to be exact. Four.
Okay.
So we have employees in Jamaica, Trinidad, Colombia, and the US.
How is that?
That is
Do you have someone that
very,
manages them for you, or are you involved in that?
Yeah.
Because I know, as I have a question again into the your position here, but I could just imagine the logistical nightmare that might be to get everybody on the same page at
so
all times.
it is challenging. Remote work, it kills you on meetings. So if I look at my calendar, if I look on Google Calendar and look at my use of time, meetings probably take about 65% of my time weekly. And so this year we set out, we had a meeting, a leadership meeting in the start of the year. We set out to try and bring everybody back in, right? To cut down that meeting time and also bring more synergies. So we have looked to expand our offices in the local markets, and we're even expanding our office in Plantation, Florida, in order to have less meetings and more in-person communication because we're missing some of the innovativeness and also easy touch items that are missed with bad communication.
Yeah. Now, Big Pixel, the company that we work for, is all remote, and it kind of always has been. It was David who founded it. Was basically a freelancer who then decided to turn his custom software development freelancing into a business, and then would hire contractors to help when the workload got to be too much. And then after a while, those contractors would stick around long enough for him to be able to hire them on. And then it kind of grew from there. So from the core, we've always been a remote company. But like you said, being remote does have some challenges. And the meetings, yeah, there are quite a few meetings. But there's also opportunities where you can utilize the culture of being a remote company with the, I guess you can call it individualism, or a lot of the people that want to work remote have that in them. You know what I mean? Some people don't like working remote. Some people do. Some people prefer it. And you can tell usually within the first couple of months whether you're working with a contractor or just someone is added to the team, whether that synergy is going to happen remote or not. So in our case, we've
Yeah,
lucked out, but I can totally understand in your business, and especially if there's something that's like a quick thing that if two people were
Right.
looking at it, it could be solved in five
Yeah.
minutes. Versus if two people had to communicate for a day and a half to come up with a solution, yeah, that's a different beast altogether. But
Well, and also too, I would have to think like industry innovation for you guys for e-commerce. If you're all separated, some of the things that wear on you daily aren't something that you get to talk about in the same setting every day. And those types of things come then with innovation. It's like, oh, this thing that we keep, oh, this rub of like this one merchant we're having, or this trouble we keep having. And if it's something that's consistent in the workplace that you talk about, innovation sort of comes from that when you're all together and you can spitball sort of ideas on how to problem solve that or change that. And so sometimes that's hard, to
right.
get in a huddle, in a remote type setting. So I can totally see that for you guys. And you're growing so quickly. It's like you lose touch of sort of those like spark type
Absolutely.
conversations that you can have, by the water. What do we call those? The water
Absolutely.
cooler
And you,
moments.
you also miss the little things, right? So a lot of emails, a lot of Slack, a lot of phone calls, and then the little pointers, the small changes that need to be made, or the small message that becomes critical in the end is missed. And so definitely looking to go, we're pushing to open up bigger offices so we have more employees coming in than being remote.
Do you have, if you're importing everything directly from the countries and it's going directly from the producer to consumer, there's no
So
middle
the middle
ground
ground is
in
our
between?
fulfillment center.
Or do
The
you
middle
have,
ground is, yeah,
so you do have fulfillment centers that
yeah.
do require workers? Okay, yeah, that makes total
We
sense.
have to handle the customer experience, Gary.
Okay.
So it
Now,
has to, all orders come to
oh yeah.
our fulfillment centers.
Wow, that just gave me another big question. What kind of, and I don't even know if I want to ask this, but I can imagine if you're shipping things in constantly and some of the items are coming up broken, open, or whatever, like then you have to return it to the manufacturer before you can even ship it to the consumer, or like what's that kind of turnover margin like in between getting the product in and then shipping it
So
back out?
we are 3.5 to 4 days on delivery times from an order is placed because we're using all air. Yeah, we're using
That's
all air.
quick.
We're using all air, and we
Okay.
keep fast-moving consumer goods in where in stock, right? So a merchant, which is a manufacturer, has 24 hours to get an order to our facility. And how we've set up our first mile logistics is that they pretty much have on the islands that there are easy access to get a product to us overnight. When it comes when it when it leaves our fulfillment center, it lands same day in Miami, and then by the next morning goes out 2 day shipping. So we're anywhere depending on what part of the country, we're either between 3.5 days to 4.5 days delivered to a customer. On returns, we're about 3.6% on returns and damages in total. I just put them all together. Go ahead, Gary. You were gonna say something.
No, I was going to say that's low.
Low. Yeah, I would think that's low.
That's
Yeah.
lower than I would have expected.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So we the reason for that is we take in the beginning it was about 9%, and everything had to be put pressure on our packaging just because we had a longer transit and because returns were so expensive for us. Packaging, we had to again, challenges happen. You focus on what's hitting you and what's the fire at that time. So 2021 returns and damages were nine at one point. I think it was like 12%, and then we were looking at the costs. So we focused a lot of energy on packaging, brought it down to 3.5%, and then but now packaging is taking too much time now that we
Yeah.
have goals of so it's crazy. You go from shifts. So now in 2022, towards the end of 2022, we're looking at okay, we need to get orders out faster. So what's taking a lot of time? Packaging, right? And and so now in 2023, we're looking at smart ways to package or shipments faster and spend less time doing it. And in spending less time, we have to balance the fact that we're securing the products so we have less
Okay.
damages on in transit. So go figure. Go figure.
Then on the whole other side of it, it's great. You've got all these logistics figured out. You're figuring out all that out on the back end. But then how do you market to how do people even know that you exist? And when I was looking at your site, you guys have a blog. Everything is well curated. The customer experience is, you can tell, something that's very, very thoughtful with you guys. When did you really, and of course I have some skin in this game because I am in marketing, but when did you guys decide, okay, so now we've got all this figured out. How did you go about marketing? Or okay, we're going to do like a beauty and wellness and home and living blog here where we're taking our products and we're prescribing them to certain ideas that come up in our consumers' day-to-day life. That seems very thoughtful to me. So when did that sort of element come into play with your founding of the idea?
That was day one. That was one of our first acquisitions, like or brand aesthetics or brand story. How we're going to was one of our first was employee number four, and UX UI everything was consistent, um, and we were very intentional on how we're going to get the message out there of brand Caribbean made and supporting cultural commerce, how we're going to communicate to those customers, because our first goal is to get to our customer who's from the islands, who misses the islands, and who getting those products is not convenient and it's not accessible. Um, we know that our communication will change over time. As a matter of fact, again, you work on things, you solve one problem. I think to your point, Christy, we were intentional about that, and that was early days. I think now we're going away from the curated experience to more the real experience. I think that's one of the things that we've pulled out from our data, like our social media. We need to show a lot more of people and their connections with us versus our products and our content. Well curated Instagram, well curated Facebook, but it's not
Mm.
converting the way we should be converting when we're served over 56,000 customers, and those customers have either had good or bad experiences, and we need to be telling that story. So we're actually shifting from the way our content is or social media, and
Yeah,
also our
absolutely. That
paid
makes total
strategy.
sense.
Yeah, and you do have reviews and ratings on all your products on the homepage and stuff. So was leveraging like the reviews and the feedback that you're getting as part of the marketing where you're kind of going forward with that, or
Yes, so it was definitely to leverage that. You knew day one from all the experience that you've seen out there that reviews matter, especially for discovery of
yeah,
new product. Um, for users to be confident that you're a real site, if you're a real new company, um, these things matter. And so that was day one in our architecture. And like I said, 3 months ago, FDA, we've had a good NPS score, and when we had those issues with FDA, man, our reviews got blasted. And so, so,
Ugh.
now
because
you got to do like reputation
now
management.
we got to do reputation
Yeah.
management. It's every day. It's every day. You could never foresee that getting, almost 1,200 packages on hold at the port, not moving, and have to figure out all the regulations and compliance things that you have to now do because you improved or changed your process.
That's crazy.
But yeah, it's a part of it. So
My marketing brain is working for you. I was thinking you could always do like a day in that's the way you were describing it. It's almost like a day in the life of a product from you from start to beginning. So the moment that person clicks or the moment it's before that, it's the feeling that is evoked with them from the culture, the thing that they're getting, the experience that they had, and then they purchase it. And then what does it take for your company to get that from start to finish into the consumer's hands? That's a very interesting story to be seen and to experience so that they can then understand it's not just a review that they're leaving. It's like you are really trying to do your very best to get them what they've asked for in a system that is working against you a little bit right now.
that's a great idea, Chrissy. I might steal that one. I'll definitely give you the credit.
Yeah, I will allow you to. I'll
I'll
allow
give you
you
the
to. You
credit for
can.
that.
You can. Okay, cool.
Big Pixel gets 1% of all
Yes,
proceeds.
one
No, I'm
percent
just
of all
kidding.
proceeds.
Sure, we'll just sign you.
I had a
Good.
question. David, even though he's not here, I can hear his squeaky little voice in the back of my head.
No
And
tragedy.
he's going to want me to ask a question about leadership. So, when you started the company and then you grew it enough to start getting employees, how much of your job and what you were involved in has changed?
My involvement. My involvement.
You go from being the technician to the leader, but I'm sure, like, what does that look like in an e-commerce way?
In the beginning, in 2020, I'm doing everything. I'm learning.
Yeah,
I'm learning how we.
all founders are the same
Yep,
story.
yep. You gotta do every single job in your company, because the minute you hire somebody to do it, if you don't know the components of that job, um, you're not gonna be clear on what success is, right? In that position.
Yeah,
So I literally did merchant success, which is the department that onboards new brands and manufacturers to our platform. I did packaging and packing boxes. Um, I worked with, I did logistics. Um, the only thing I didn't do hands-on was marketing, but I'm doing marketing and through PR things that I'm doing, or partnerships, relationships. So your job and title changes, obviously. And I think where we are in our growth stages, I'm now taking a step out of operations and focusing on the long-term vision and the big picture. I was always focused on the big picture items, but I'm going to be spending more of my time on the big picture items, the partnerships, the growth efforts that's going to take 1 + 1 = 11 versus 1 + 1 = 2.
Right.
That's where my focus is. I mean, we've grown to where we now have a head of operations, and our head of operations has been with us from day one. And actually, that person started out as head of merchant success when they first came in, and they've grown. And so they understand the day-to-day operations and what's required. And so 70% of their time is going to be spent on making sure that that quality control is done and execution is done. And I think more of my time is going to be focused on putting one and one together and making 11.
That's exciting. That's an exciting place to be. I mean, I get excited about that because in sitting and watching all the podcasts and listening to seeing through lines of conversation with some of these startup owners that we have, it's that they're sort of in that, maybe 1 to 5 years in the beginning, that first step, trying to get to the place where they are shedding those job titles so that they can focus on the 1 + 1 = 11. And you guys are at that place. It's like everything is coming together now for you right now, where you're, okay, now we're actually going to see how can we move this idea, our long-term strategy, into something bigger, better, more refined, more true to who we are. You're not only just staying afloat, but you're really like sort of driving that ship, which is super exciting to hear for you guys. But also, I'm sure, pretty scary because it's uncharted for you.
Yep, it certainly is. But everything is timing, right?
Now, did you guys?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, everything is time. And another, just a little. I don't want to quote David because he's not quotable.
Oh,
But to
Gary.
quote David, he says, and I'm sure he got it from someone else because he's really not this bright. He said part of the job of a CEO or leadership is giving away your job, meaning, like you said, you start doing everything and then you slowly start giving away all these little things that you had to do until you can get to the point where you're getting to where you could just sit back and kind of focus more on the big picture and how to expand from there. So some
That's
people
a
have
nice
a
quote, by
hard
the way.
time with that, and some people don't give him credit for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I'm
don't
going to
tell
take
him
credit for
that.
that. I'm going
I'm
to Michael
cutting
Scott
that.
that quote.
That's cut.
um, so yeah, some people have a hard time with that because a lot of times, in David's case, and I'll speak for him, his passion was actually coding and creating the software, doing that tactile, physical part of building the software. And then the more the company grew, he had to
Step
step
away.
back from that further and further and further. And now he doesn't really code much at all. And while he does miss it, he's still, he's got a whole new environment that he has to explore and grow from in that leadership phase to try to help the whole company grow. So he did have to give away kind of what he loved to do at the beginning, and then found out this is actually something else that he learned to love to do. So interesting position to be in.
And
Yeah, time. Yeah.
I think to that point, guys, it's also uncharted when you start growing as a CEO. You're doing new things and you have to learn new skills. I mean, my newest skill I'm
Yeah.
learning is the HR side of things. It's, and I'm sure all of us hate it, but it's important. It's very important. Um,
Yeah.
and managing my board and working with them and keeping them a part of the day to day and buying out time for that. That's also a new uncharted territory. My business before this was my brother and I, we built it from ground up. We never raised any capital. We just built a very, very good business over 16 years. Um, so this is quite interesting.
So you had investors to begin this iteration of what you were doing, is what you're saying, that invested in Caribshopper.
Yeah, we did raise seed round funding, and we've had some good investors. Because what we did was very capital intensive in the beginning, and there's no way
Yep.
our sales were going to
Yeah.
catch up to what was needed. Fulfillment center alone is still being paid off. So, it's there's some businesses that can be bootstrapped and some that cannot. Um,
Right.
And you have to be clear on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you ship out of what, 48 countries and have employees in 4 different countries and things like that. Like, yeah, some things
I
you
think
can
it's
raise capital
4
for.
different countries into 48 states and then Canada.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
Right?
Yeah,
yeah.
that's crazy.
It would be crazy if it's 48
Oh
countries.
man.
That would be awesome.
And
Yeah, that
you're getting
48.
products.
Yeah. 48 states.
You're getting products from Jamaica to Canada in 3 to 4 days.
Yeah,
It's nuts.
yeah.
Wow.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
Something that's better than Amazon in some cases.
Yeah. But that's the relationships that you forged, which is really important, is that you guys did the work on the upfront to make sure that that was really tight so that when this even came to the consumer, that was all set. So you weren't losing business or losing time or losing revenue trying to work that out. You have the boots on the ground in those areas, having those relationships with the merchants, and that's what makes those relationships succeed.
Yeah, it's a little bit harder than that, but that's a good summary.
Yeah. If it was that easy.
You get a good
Yeah, so
idea,
easy.
people throw money at you, and then you're successful. It's
It's
stupid.
it's stupid.
Everybody should do
Everybody should do it. Don't count my gray
Well,
hairs.
actually, speaking of that, yeah, he's actually only 22 for people watching this on YouTube.
I wish.
Yeah, I was gonna say you don't have grandkids. I was like, what are you talking about? Don't say that.
Now, we do have a question we ask everybody that comes on the show,
Mhm.
and it seems like you're going to have a really good group of answers for this. So, through your journey and through even your journey from the previous company, what would be your top 3 pieces of advice for any entrepreneur or new business when they get started?
Number one, before you start, like really A/B test your idea as best as possible. And the reason why I say that is one of the biggest assets to any entrepreneur is confidence, right? And while a lot of us are crazy in our heads to think that we can do something that hasn't been done or do it better or create a better structure, product, whatever, you're going to go through times that are really testing on your mental strength. And you have to have the confidence to know that either you're right or you're going to be right. That's the key. You might not be right, but you're onto something and you're going to get there where you're right. That level of
I
confidence,
love that.
that level of confidence comes with you being confident in your idea because it's going to be tested every day, and
Right.
and you being confident that if you're not right, you're going to figure it out. So both are the first and most important. And if you've done an A/B test, it gives you more confidence. It's like I've built a tent, so I know how to build a house, right? It's not
Yeah, knowledge is
knowledge
power.
is
Yeah.
power. Um, the second thing I would love to tell an entrepreneur as they begin to start the journey is spend the time to map out your journey. It's gonna take a lot of turns. It's gonna take it will have pivots, but if you know where you're going to, um, how you get there is going to change along the way, but you're gonna know you're getting there because it's easy to say, my goal, I'm building an e-commerce marketplace for two reasons. Reason number one, I want to help carbon manufacturers scale internationally because they've been marginalized for years and nobody has put the time and effort to solve this problem. And it's the same problem we're solving on the consumer side. Because if you don't live near a Caribbean grocer or you're not in the vicinity, there's no convenient or accessible way to access your culture, right? So there's a problem I'm solving. But the second part of this is we know that doing this, we keep our culture alive no matter where we go. And if you look at Italians in most cities, Asians, Mexicans, all different um, cultures, they found a way to maintain their culture no matter where they are. And Caribbean people, for that fact, have. But I also see that we haven't spent the time to grow, um, or connection, cultural connection. So once you understand as an entrepreneur what your business is going to do or going to how it's going to impact, the that's your end goal. You're gonna make the roads, or you're gonna find the right roads to take along the way. But you have to be clear on the vision. It can't just be,
Yeah.
and it has to be deeper than I see an opportunity here to make some money.
Yeah, those are usually the entrepreneurs that just think they found a slick or quicker way to solve a problem that exists, and they're going to spin something up and sell it. They don't have
Make
the
a bunch of
passion
money.
behind it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
obviously you have the passion behind this idea. So
And last but not least, entrepreneurs always go to fuel. They always, when things are not going right, it could be execution's not happening in the company. It could be their marketing is not converting the way they want. Um, Operationally, something's not working. We always think, put fuel behind it, whether we need to spend more in marketing, or we need to do more marketing messages, or we need to hire more team to solve this problem so we get better execution. I've learned and I've found that removing friction is more impactful than fuel, but you got to know the difference when.
Hmm.
So for me, if I'm working with Christie and our marketing is not converting, it's not about let's throw more dollars at it. And while there is a time for that, there is a
Mhm.
the first move that you make is trying to look at what friction is holding back the messaging. Is it our messaging? Is it the platform? Is it what? Once you figure that out, it's easy to throw fuel behind it. But if you start working on removing friction, um, a lot of things become clear. A lot of things become clear.
I love that. I love that
that's a
one. I
good
don't
one.
think we've heard that
That's
before, Gary. I love
I was going to
that.
say that's probably one of the most unique pieces of advice that we've gotten so far, and that one is really good.
And super
Knowing
true.
when to
Super, super
spot and
true.
remove friction. That's
And
for
then
sure.
add the
I love that.
fuel.
Yeah, I remember. I'll share something with you. It actually goes in all aspects of life. Um, I remember a friend of mine related it to a relationship with a man and a couple having a relationship. If things are not going well and you're gonna go on a lot of dates, it's more impactful if you remove the things that are not going well in your relationship than to add more dates, add more fun things, because it holds more weight removing that the friction that's causing it, whether it be you're just not communicating well. You'd be surprised that if your default for most of us is to do more, if you start looking at how do we do less and accomplish more, then when it's time to put fuel, it's going to be more impactful.
Absolutely. It's like working out every single day, but then eating cupcakes at night and being like, I'm working out a million times a day. Why aren't I losing weight? It's because you're eating cupcakes at night. Remove the cupcakes, and then you'll see results.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that, Kadion. That's really I love it.
But have you seen on his website they got orange cupcakes?
See, perfect. Perfect. I'll
Orange
send you my
cupcakes.
address. They'll be here in 2 to 3 days, right? Yeah.
Random question. Do you have favorite products
Oh, I do.
that you
Oh
guys sell?
gosh.
Oh, I do. Oh, I do.
What connects you back to home?
Um,
Well, I guess home is Florida now, but what connects you back to the culture?
oh man, it's
Food for a lot of
do
people,
do you
but
well?
I'm wondering if there's any specific food.
Yeah, so there's specific foods. There's the normal, so it's the snacks. So it's the bun,
The childhood
it's
favorites
the
and stuff.
childhood favorites. But as an adult, it's my coffee. Jamaican
Mm,
coffee is like the ish. You know, it is the real deal.
I have not tried it
And
yet.
I mean, Google it.
I'll have to get
It bounces between number one and number two coffee in the world. And there's a reason for it, because of how it's how it's roasted, how it's harvested, where it's grown at 8,000 feet um, uh, above sea level. It's very, very amazing coffee. My or peppers. There's a pepper sauce that
Oh yeah.
I can't get anywhere else outside of the island. And um, man, there's so many things. If you come to my house, you'll be served goat cheese and pepper jelly, and the pepper jelly's amazing,
Oh,
amazing.
that's so good.
Um,
That's good.
Is it? I've had like jalapeno. pepper jelly. Is it like that, or is it different mixture
So
like Scotch
Better.
so
bonnets and everything?
Scotch bonnets. We use Scotch bonnets in Jamaica, and in Trinidad they use scorpion pepper, and I've had the scorpion pepper one, and
Ooh.
they're both like, if you put it the right mix, the palate um taste that you get, it's amazing. And then in my house, I mean, I have 3 kids. I try to grow them up to know what it was like for me to grow up, and the cultural habits that we have, where we'd make porridge versus cornflakes, or we would have, you know, curry chicken, and different types of meals that have been a part of my upbringing. And it's very important to me. So there's so many things that I could pick on the list. And then there's the health products. Yeah. No, even the food preparation, less preservatives, less
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
less a lot of things that we're ingesting today.
Yeah.
It's between Latin America and the Caribbean, they're very ethical in the way they produce products.
Awesome. So, Katie, if anybody else wants to learn more about your company or yourself, what is the best way for them to get in touch?
So if you want to learn more about Caribshopper, it's www.caribshopper.com, and we're at Caribshopper on all platforms: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We're at Caribshopper. About If you want to learn more about me, I'm Kadion P on all platforms. And you know, tell your friends. Anybody who've spent time in the Caribbean or from Caribbean descent, tell them about Caribshopper, because we're connecting the culture and bringing it one step closer.
Speaking of friends, I actually do have quite a few friends that I am immediately sending a link to the site to, because
Yeah.
Amazing.
they
I'm
were the ones
psyched.
that would take me in and out of the Jamaican groceries and the Caribbean groceries in the area where I live, and
Yeah,
got me hooked on some of these things. Like, I instantly, when I saw the spice bun wrapper, I was like, I know that. I've had that.
yep, yep,
And friends from my, I guess you could say, the other islands like Puerto Rico and Malta, like their sodas
yep,
and stuff like that. Like, so
yep.
this is really interesting to me, and I have a bunch of people I'm going to send this link to. But
Awesome. Awesome.
if anybody wants to ask us questions or leave any comments about the podcast, the comments can go below this video on YouTube. You can email us at hello@thebigpixel.net, and you can reach out to us on any one of our social media platforms as well. Big Pixel, the Big Pixel NC. So thank you very much for your time today, Kadian. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we move on out till next week?
No, guys, it was a pleasure. Christy, you're amazing. Gary, you're really cool.
No,
And
Christie's
hope,
amazing.
hope,
That's true.
Ay, ay,
Christie's
ay.
amazing. I'm okay. David sucks, but he's gone. So
No, I had a great time today, guys, and would love to see you guys check us out and tell me what you like, and I'd be sure to make any good recommendations. And thank you for the time.
all right,
Thanks,
and we will
Katie.
put all these links below in the show notes, so you don't have to try to write them down when you hear this. And we will see you guys next week.